right. Let's see what's going on here. All right. Let's see if you guys can hear me. Looks like you guys can. And I am going to... Oh man, hopefully not sneeze real loud. Give me a second here. Oh, man. All right. That was loud. Let's do a little bit of systems work. So, what are we talking about today? We are working on getting people jobs, thinking about like what the tasks are around Linux systems administration. And I know a lot of people are looking for work, trying to find things that are jobs in the field, that kind of stuff. So we are just going down through and looking at the tasks that are there and looking at the things that these are from real jobs. So people are actually asking for this stuff. And we're just walking through how you can kind of prepare for some of this stuff. So that's where we're at. I think that probably resonates the most with people. I think people tend to like this kind of stuff. Plus, this is the stated goal of our group. Hey, Control Byte, thanks for the Prime. I appreciate that. Have we tried turning it off and on again? Yeah,
tried turning it off and on again.
There we go. So let's look at these jobs. I've been kind of updating this doc. I mean, look, it's all the way almost to 1,000 lines, but we've been going through a lot of this stuff. And this first one is participate in shift rotation and respond to infrastructure alerts and incidents. So, I mean, you have to show up. You have to be willing to work on call, right? So you're going to be in a shift on call rotation. If you guys have never been on call, you tend to get, maybe you've got 7 people on your team or something. You get one week every approximately 2 months or so, like that. Hey, how's it going, RNX? We're just hanging out. Speaking of jobs, if you know anyone in your network, 5 years experience in chaos engineering, got a roll. Yeah, we definitely, it's funny, we started messing with chaos engineering probably about 4 years ago. But that's a good one. Control by, I don't know if you can post it up or give anybody any info down in the Discord, but I know if you can do anything like that, people will hopefully respond in some way. I think my brother just found some work, so that's kind of good. One of my brothers was looking for, well, he wasn't even looking for anything. He kind of fell in. Somebody messaged me and said, hey, can you do all this? It was Kubernetes work, but it was heavily in OpenShift, and I have no OpenShift experience, and he has exclusively done OpenShift for, I think, the last 5 or 6 maybe years. So he's been doing a lot. He has, he's been doing it the Red Hat way, so he can bring that to a team. So that's really good. Control Byte. In fact, the oldest one that I know that got that of any of us was M-Pesa. So he had blown through all his Red Hat stuff, and he was just looking at other stuff to do. So he went and got that one as well. So, Linux said GitHub does not like your username. Got suspended twice without a single repo and had a single. That's pretty funny. K8's job, ultimate pivot. Yeah, K8's is a good one to get, a good one to move over to. My brother moved into that from. He came on and did Linux with us. Then he went and did infrastructure stuff. Then he came back and did Linux for a while. So when I say infrastructure, I mean VMware and storage. And then he came back and worked with us on the Linux side for a little while. And then we were called the mid-range Unix team, though, which we had phased out most of our Linux. We had a little bit of we had our Linux, but we had phased out most of everything but like 5 Solaris boxes. So RNX, you're moving from software engineer to DevOps. Yeah, I was talking to somebody earlier that was doing that same. Well, they were moving out of being a pro software engineer and they were looking for other stuff. So I'm trying to just get people. And Colchis, how's it going? I'm trying to get people just feel comfortable, right? Like this is a career path. Like it might seem like, oh hey, like I've been a software engineer, I've been building all these edifices, but the things that we work on, like the roads, and I know the roads are more than network, but it's almost like all the addresses are us server platform engineers. We're the guys that keep everything kind of. I like to think of it kind of like all even. You ever seen somebody run across one of those bridges or like the Ninja Warrior courses and it's all like, wobbly like that and they go falling off into the water? Our job is to keep that level for people, right? That's why I often use the example of ships, is because if my stuff isn't any good, it doesn't matter what kind of software engineers we have. It doesn't matter how good our software guys are and what kind of edifices they can build, because it's all going to fall over anyways. It's on a shaky foundation, right? So yeah, don't talk about Oedipus. That's a different complex. You don't want that one. Anyway, so participate in shift rotation and respond to infrastructure alerts and incidents. So I've told you guys, work comes in from incidents and alerts. So, how do we track? Are we monitoring usage? How do we check, ticketing? What is our SLA? So we need to know, do we have to triage something in under, 30 minutes? Like what's our level of tickets that are coming in? The best way I could tell you to understand that is to probably go look at some of the tooling that's out there. Big ones that people use are OpsGenie, not Alert Manager, but OpsGenie and ServiceNow are two that I've used. There's a bunch of little third-party projects and things like that, but how does work come in and how do we maintain it? You might get asked questions about that. Like you can show willingness to like show up and do work, right? And people will be like, okay, this person will show up and do work, but they might ask you like, well, what do you do to manage your tickets? And you might say, well, I always watch for new tickets and I try to respond to them in under 15 minutes, and then I triage my tickets and I kind of work them as like a backlog throughout the day. Anything that I don't get done by the end of the day, I do a warm handoff via email to the next shift team. Maybe we're on shifts, right? Like first, second, third shift. And then I make sure that there's a warm handoff so they continue working on it so that we can hopefully get an update back to the customer by the next morning. But I always do at least one end of the day final closeout of the ticket. Even if I didn't finish all the work on it, I send an update on the ticket so that if the customer is looking, they see the update to the ticket, and then they can be satisfied with that, or they can contact our team again and try to get more work on it at night. That's pretty acceptable for most teams, right? Unless your team has some higher escalation, right? Sometimes people are gonna come in real hot and they're gonna go right to your manager and they're gonna escalate, and it's like, best you can do with that is have a process, right? Because again, most of us, we're engineers. We're doing admin work, sometimes trying to get into engineering. We're trying to get as far away from working directly with people as we can, but you always have some type of customer, right? Like I always have somebody I answer to, kind of no matter where I am. So look at this. They want you to debug production infrastructure with tools like this. So monitoring and fixing the monitoring. So they want you to be able to go in here and go to like, how's Ranger doing? How's Ranger? Oh, we're not even logged in. Let's check on Ranger Dog. Oh. There's Ranger. How's Ranger doing? He's doing all right. But our other systems, right? Are we logged in here? And can I look at this and see when there's something that's too high on CPU? If there's something going on? Yeah, Ranger, right? You guys don't get enough time with Ranger. Look at him. Look at him looking up all off his bed, being all lazy. He's been like super active in the morning. It's been really cool in Phoenix the last few. I think today's only, what did it get up to? 70 today, which is nice for us because it had been getting up in the 80s and like I had to turn the AC on. It was like getting too warm in the house. Yeah, it says it's 70 right now, but it'll be getting down lower through the weekend. It looks like, so that's kind of nice. But where I'm going with this is, so, you know, are they asking us for monitoring and alerting off of this? Okay, these things, you know, I know this is a week right here, so that all looks normal. But if I didn't have something, or maybe I could investigate this spike, maybe all users said they couldn't get into our system in this time, right? Like they couldn't get in the system during this time. Well, for some reason, nobody was logged into P01 Jumpo 1 at this time, so it's possible that something was down, and maybe I need to go investigate my server, right? So maybe I come over here, I get out of here, and I do like an uptime, and I go, this server's been up 23 days. Well, this, you know, just doing some quick little math here, if today's the 14th, because it's Valentine's Day, right? And that's the 12th, well, it's been up 23 days, so it's been up way back into January. I know that whatever was going on here has nothing to do with the uptime. The server wasn't down. Does that make sense? The time that I have is expanded well over that, back into, you know, last month sometime. So this downtime where nobody was connected, something else happened. And I say, what else might have happened there? Well, oh, actually, all of my connections got dropped in because I rebooted my system here. So my physical box here, my laptop, booted, and I wasn't in anymore. And apparently nobody else was in through to the Rocky servers at that time. So that's fine. There's nothing wrong there. It's just if somebody were to ask, hey, why on all these charts is there no usage right here? We want usage, right? There's that kind of stuff. So, no, I can see you guys over there. I can see you guys over here, I think. Hold on. Make sure I'm not missing anything. Hard to get a job for fresh graduate in DevOps. So DevOps is kind of like, at least in my experience, DevOps isn't entry level. It hasn't been in my experience because you're doing, so DevOps is this amalgamation. It's almost like you had two lumps of clay here and you squished them up together, because DevOps is either infrastructure engineering focused or it's software engineering focused. And we got guys that do this stuff. I think like M-Pesa was doing it for a while. But it's like, okay, I've got to manage all the infrastructure sometimes in the cloud, and I've got to be able to build that with infrastructure as code. Oh, but I'm also doing like my own software projects and coding as well. So I have a certain amount of my time. I think Pesa came and did some talks on kind of what he did in the DevOps world. But for me, like, I'm more down in that other lump of clay that's like the platform engineering. I'm kind of like the engineer that hasn't been brought up into doing that kind of stuff, because I kind of I'm like, ooh, brother, ooh, I like stay away from it. So if you guys are familiar with that meme. So, or that trope or whatever you want to call it. So anyways, my point is we come in here and then we see, you know, all our failed logins for the last 6 hours. It looks like we have a lot more the last 6 hours than normal. Looks like there was even a few kind of high outliers of people trying to log in. And we can go investigate what was going on there and that kind of stuff, probably before somebody got themselves locked out forever. So anyway, so monitoring, you know, what are our dashboards? What are our alerts, right? And then if fixing the monitoring is more what they're talking about, because again, they could be talking about two different things here. Fixing the monitoring, how are the data flowing? How do we check, right? So, like, let's say this page wasn't showing us anything. Well, how would I know what to check? Like, how would I know that it wasn't broken here on the Grafana side as opposed to, like, out on the Loki side? Well, there's a few things I could do. I'd have to know some infrastructure stuff, but I could come up here and I can, like, SSH to Grafana 2 in my home lab, because I know that happens to be Grafana 2. And I could say, what's Grafana running on? 3000. So I see that Grafana is running. I can also just do a systemctl status Grafana. Right, see that it's, yeah, Grafana server. I see Grafana running. I see that it's doing some stuff. I can go look at its PID and make sure it's running off of that port 3000 if I cared to. Right, there's 3000 or LSF-I on the port if I just wanted the port. And the port was, sorry, the PID, 645. Right? And I would see Grafana listening on, in this case, 3100, right? That's what I thought it listened to. Yeah, 3100 is what I thought it was listening to. Oh, and then I see the connection established from a server over there as well. So, you know, we're doing these things, and then how do I know that everything's connected? Let's go check on Ranger. There's Ranger. He is, I've never seen him lay like that. Normally he keeps his head either down on his bed or his head goes off down onto the tile right here. So we had a Ranger check, so we'll... did I answer your GPG question? Like if I use GPG? Yeah, I mean I use GPG keys for, you know, validating that repositories are good. But are you talking like, do I use my own GPG for anything like in my lab, or do I encrypt anything with it? Like, no, I don't have that level of security needs. I don't think. I don't. Well, or maybe I don't care that much. But no, I don't know. I don't do that. I don't do anything over the top like that. Well, let's not say over the top. I really like this quote by Inspector. Do you guys ever see Inspector's quote? Let me go find it real quick. He's got a great quote. Where's this thing at? I know I tagged him a while back in it when I grabbed it. I don't see it. Where did he put this? Where did he put it? It's a pretty good quote. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where I have it. But anyways, he basically said if you if you do more security than me, or if you're more security minded than me, then you're paranoid, and if you're less security minded than me, then you're yeah, if you're more security minded than me, then you're paranoid. If you're less security minded than me, then you're insane, or something like that. It was pretty good. Yeah, Enzo, Ranger got his new bed. It was disappointingly small, even though I did do the large bed off of the website. And you can see it back there. It's so small it sits on top of his other bed. And he does sleep on it quite a bit. He does really like it. He's on his other bed right now, one of his older beds. But I also moved him back a little ways so you guys could see him. But he's just kind of plopped down on the thing, so you don't really see him too much right now. He's most active in the mornings, so if you guys missed that, it's because of that. But thanks for the Prime. Hopefully this stuff's useful to you. And let's keep going with this. So there's Ranger Cam and Ranger Check. And we were talking about debug production infrastructure issues with tools like Prometheus, Grafana, Alert Manager, and full access to the infrastructure. So I said monitoring, like what are our dashboards? What are our alerts? Do I need to make those alerts? Do I need to keep track of things? I mean, monitoring for me is always coming from the big four. You guys know that, the big four. This is nothing new. CPU, memory, disk, network. And almost universally, that's the order that they almost always have problems in. Like those are almost always the way that we look at them, right? So what are our dashboards? What are our alerts? Are there gaps? You know, are there gaps? Are there current pain points? And what I always tell guys, and this came up a while back. Let me see if I can find this. You never find anything in here, right? Let me see if I can find. Let me see if I can find a thing that I said on here. I started with what you should. Or I said... maybe not. I know I didn't write it that long ago. And I thought it was in... Ah, shit, guys. I don't know where I have it. But... I know it was from me. I could do from... whatever. I hate their search functionality inside of Discord. I think it's not great. But anyways, fixing for monitoring, we'll worry about that later. But the point is, I had a thing that I was talking about. If any of you guys want to find it, it was about when you first get a job in the sysadmin world, what I think you should be doing for the first 2 weeks. I kind of have my ideas on what I think you guys should be doing and working on. And a lot of it is documenting the process of what's there and documenting what's not there and then updating those things that are not there so that the next person that comes along, when they ask, there's nothing that doesn't go smoothly. Like everything goes smoothly for them. So then they're like, oh, well, this place really has it together. But really, it's just that you kind of did, everything. So work on regular infrastructure maintenance tasks. So this can be, so for me, I touch every server every day. That's a thing that I do when I'm maintaining servers. And you say, how do you do that? Ansible, just check if servers are up, if they've rebooted, if critical items are there. So you might say, well, what's critical? Well, I don't do anything like when I do that check, my daily check. It's almost like just like you guys ever seen somebody like sip some coffee and just look out over the water and all the water's calm and some I don't know, think of something where somebody's out in some mountain somewhere and there's a lake and everything's just calm. That's how I do this check. And I've been writing this check, I've been showing this check to you for a long time, where we go and we hit all the servers, make sure they're up. We make sure that we see the word day in their uptime. Because if we don't see the word day in their uptime, they haven't been up over 24 hours. And if we're constantly checking that, we'll see any nodes that have rebooted. Why does it matter if nodes reboot? Is because that's when the most changes occur in a system, is when a system reboots, right? Also, reboot in the physical sense is always, it's not always, it is a precursor to attack if somebody has access to your system. So that's something to think of. Like if I can reboot a server and be physically at it, that's like game over, right? Hey, how's it going, Robodom? So anyway, what are we doing? I like check all the servers, see if they've rebooted. And then critical items might be our SSH run. Do I expect SSH to be on all my boxes? Do I expect Firewall D to be on all my boxes? And then you say, well, how do you report this? That's, 1,200 or 3,000 servers or whatever. How do you report this? I only report anomalies. I only want to see things that are different. So then that's a lot easier to see. Because, and I should be able to show you, I don't know why I can't find, I don't know what's going on with my brain. I can't find anything today. But in the sandbox, this is what this used to look like when I would just go and touch all the servers in the lab. And then these are other people did this thing too. This is what my check looked like. Were there any unreachable systems? Yeah, there were some. Did anything reboot in the last 24 hours? Yeah, there were some. Or not in this case. And then had anybody logged in? No. Not in this case. But that's what I wanted to know in the home lab, right? If we keep going up, there will be some that rebooted. This one used to run every 24 hours in the sandbox. That's why you see it like this. Hold on. Super easy. Yeah, so Red Note 01. I had rebooted, I think, we were hanging out today. No, Robodom, we're going over just Linux admin tasks. I have a job. These are actual job. People had given me job. This was off of DICE or something like that. And then we were talking down here about work on normal infrastructure maintenance. That was the next task. So I would not. But other than something like that, where that's just like a quick sanity check, compared to inventories, that kind of stuff. You want to make sure your tools are checking things for you. That's the dashboards, right? And then you go and you learn about your different types of dashboards. One of the places I would go tell you, because people say, well, what do I put on a dashboard, right? Well, there's the sre.googlebooks. It's a great site for this, and I forget which one of these it is. I think it's this one. But let's go look. No, it's not this one. Go back. Maybe it's this one. Well, it can only be the third one then. Nope. Well, I don't know where it is. Thought there was the word. Maybe they don't have the word dashboard anywhere. Practical alerting. Here's about alerting, right? May the queries flow and the pager stay silent. I like that. A traditional SRE. Hold on, I want to go grab that. I gotta go drop that in the Discord. That's funny. Hold on. Where's my DevOps? And then I'll link the page in there. There they go. All right. So the point is, you can find that. You can go look at examples. You know, somebody give me examples of kind of what's going on there. All right. So, document your findings so you can turn them into repeatable actions and then into automation. So this is documentation. I mean, right? So why does the business need us? The business needs us to document things, but many engineers hate documenting stuff. They just want to keep building stuff. To which I would say, well, the thing is, you've got to document things. You've got to make it easier for you. You've got to make it easier for other engineers that come behind you. And then honestly, this has been huge for me in my career, because I've told you guys since 2013 I've been the tech lead everywhere. This has to be good enough that you bet your weekend on it. And you say, Scott, what do you mean? This is some bullshit about betting your weekend on it. Well, I mean exactly what I'm saying. If your documentation is not good enough that somebody doesn't have to call you, so if somebody has to call you because what you did or what you fixed or something that somebody knows you were on an incident on, and then you close the incident, but you didn't document it well enough that somebody doesn't have to call you, well, you're getting called. That's all there is to that. So you want to be able to bet your weekend that your documentation's good enough for that. And then you want to, and this is something, right? Develop an automation. Oh, what was going on there? That was weird. Develop an automation mindset. And this kind of looks like this for some of you guys. I think I have it. Not on there. Not on there. I think it's in here. Yeah. So this is an automation mindset. I think this is my thoughts on it. I wrote these one day on stream, and I think that this is something that you kind of need. Yeah, I don't know what was going on with Notepad there. That was weird, but this is my thoughts on it. Right? If you want to tell me that you're doing things in an automated fashion, I think you need to know your tools. You need to understand how to get inventories in, right? I think inventories are getting Ansible on your system, number one. Getting an inventory to be able to properly do things against the right machines, that's number two. And then number three, I think, is need to know your tools, need to know how they work. Where do you use them? How do you apply them? How do I look things up? And look, I know people who do really good admin work, and all they ever do is drop every question they have down into like a chat GPT, and it just pops out some code, and then they modify the code for what they're doing. There's some validity to that, guys. I've seen some pretty cool stuff pop out of that AI type model that people are doing. And then I say apply those tools everywhere to make your life easier. Hit an API daily so you don't have to ask a question. This was what I was talking about earlier about those checks I do. Those checks I do against my systems often hit APIs. Hit a satellite API, pull down all the stuff. Hit a API out in Google, or not Google, AWS, and pull all my servers. Now I have two lists that I can compare. Super easy to compare lists in Python. It's like damn near what it was built for, right? You can compare the two things, and then you could say, okay, these servers are over here in satellite, but they're not over here on AWS list. They're over here in AWS, but they're not in satellite. How do we do it? Oh, actually, the tool that I used to hit the most was a tool called Sharewell, right? And these kind of things. So there's that. You said Admiral Nimitz, you said your boss sends you about 200 queries. Yeah, so, this is one of these things where if you keep answering him for 200 queries a day, you're not going to get a lot of what's called individual contributor. You're not going to get your work done, and then it's going to look bad at you at the end of, the year on your reviews and stuff. So what I try to do is I try to show management like, hey, this is the right answer. This is what you asked for. This is where I got it from, right? Because if a lot of stuff's being referenced in documentation, there you go. If something, well, you're not going to get managers to do technical things, right? Like you're not going to get a manager to kick off an Ansible script or log into Tower. That's not going to work. So in those kind of cases, you might just set something up to email them, right? So now the info that they want is just in their email daily. I like to use like a team system, or Teams. Teams is one that I use. Slack has been fine, and Discord. Those are the ones that I know for certain that I can hit, where I just send data up. Right, I just send here's how the system's doing every day. Just kind of know how it's going, and yeah. And if you're typing the same thing for multiple systems, you need to automate it, because you might not know this, but everybody else knows this. You make a lot of mistakes. If you don't know that, you've never typed in front of people. Because once you type in front of people, you'll realize all the freaking mistakes you make when you type. Even if you're, really good at typing, you're still gonna have problems. So, all right. So I'd say, develop an automation mindset, and that is know your tools, apply them often, and part of knowing your tools is knowing how to look stuff up. Because there's things you can write, but then you find out like, oh, I wrote this thing, but there was already a module for it. So I wasted all this time writing this like API, and connection and this and this and this, and then I find out that I could have just used the tool that comes from the vendor, and then I would have just had to download their Galaxy packages or whatever. And then this one is optimize and implement multiple projects with Ansible and Terraform. So, they've told you specifically Ansible and Terraform. Meaning, those are the two tools. You're not going to negotiate and say, well, can I use Puppet and Chef? Those ones are kind of going out anyways. But Ansible, you're going to go to, your Ansible docs, and you're going to make sure that you know how to use Ansible. Oops. If you don't know how to use Ansible, you're going to go spend some time with it. Terraform has all kinds of so learn Terraform, all kinds of stuff out here for you to learn Terraform for free. So you got to go spend some time with Terraform if you don't. Their certification is only about, I think 70, it used to be like $75. It's probably about that still. It's over the 9 domains of Terraform. I thought it was pretty simple. In fact, the only points that I dropped on that had a little bit to do with variables that I didn't interpret the variables right. But you know, you only have to get like 70%. So you know, if you drop a couple questions, it doesn't matter that much. So yeah, that's what I would say. You got to know the tools that they want, right? So go at least familiarize yourself with them. And you say, well, how do I prove I'm an expert? Well, I don't see there that they say you have to be an expert, but you need to be able to intelligently talk about the tool, at least to a layer where they're going to ask. So they may ask you in the interview, hey, tell me a little bit about when you use Terraform on a project. And you say, okay, well, I've done some Terraform where I went and deployed some stuff up to AWS. You don't have to say that it wasn't for a company, unless they ask you specifically. So you say, hey, yeah, you know, we did some dev testing, and what I did was I pushed up to AWS, so I had to set my keys up. I had to set up my HashiCorp file, and I understand the structure of the HashiCorp language. And then what got me, or you say maybe, you know, hey, the first time I ever did this, what got me was as I wrote everything, the providers aren't provided because they can't give you all the providers. So then you have to do a Terraform, what is it, Terraform init or Terraform plan, one of those two. It'll go and it'll download all the providers, and you can say the provider version, which helps with stability, or you can, you know, say a provider version greater than this so that there's certain functionality. And if you talk like that in an interview, and then you say, okay, and then when I'm ready, I do a Terraform apply, and then it asks me if I'm sure because it shows me all the resources it's going to build, and I say yes, and then I know that that's kept in a TF state file, right? So there's a Terraform state file. We never maintain those manually, even though those are all JSON. And then when we're done, we can always Terraform destroy all the resources or whatever. If you can kind of walk through that process in your head, start to finish, most people are going to be like, I didn't really know anything about Terraform anyways. I just knew it was on the job description. That sounds good. And the and the guys that are probably using Terraform are probably like, well, that's what we do mostly. Yeah, that's right. You know, I mean, it's we always joke around about how the job interview is like, you know, the two titans fighting, and then the actual job is just the two people in the little they're in the little dino costumes and they're like snow shoveling. That's what it is, right? So yeah, I think the way you talk about projects is huge, 100%. So those are some things from this. This is just a job message board that somebody had posted. What do they want from you? Experience with Linux systems administration, right? So what is that? And then they want that coupled with the ability to look at all this. All right. All right. So how do you prove that you've done Linux systems administration? Obviously, previous jobs, projects that show you built something, right? We do projects in the Linux Systems Administration course. In fact, I think the projects were, they were a lot for a lot of people, right? That's why we didn't have a lot of people finish. I don't know if that's all, but I mean, you know, people fell by the wayside because it's a long course, right? You need to know how to debug logs. So bash, you know, you need to be able to grep through logs. Probably need a decent awk for an awk, and probably sort and probably cut. Those are probably some huge ones there as far as like pulling through logs, pulling just down the pieces you want, and looking at things in kind of like a histogram fashion instead of everything. That's kind of important. They want you to know, look, they want you to know some networking. Right, networking. So log into devices or just check logs. That's what I'd ask, right? I mean, I've done hands-on networking for the last 20-something years, so I feel okay with getting into any kind of iOS type system. But, and by the way, my iOS is all cap, iOS. because that's how Cisco spells it. That iOS like that is the way that Apple does it. Um, anyways, that's funny that it shows it like that, because Cisco iOS is capital. There you go. See. Anyways, network login devices, just check. Do I just need to look at logs? Then I'm back to grepping through logs using awk, sort, cut, and being able to figure out, am I looking at a span of time? Am I looking at a trace of something moving through systems? That kind of stuff. I don't think you can really prove this one, but I would say the main one that would probably prove this is moving up in jobs. So managers look at I don't look at this kind of stuff on resumes, but like managers look that you were a level 1 and then you were a level 2 and a level 3 and then you were a team lead and these kind of things. Managers look at that kind of stuff. Tech guys like me, I really just talk to you about stuff and ask you about, how much you know these things, and I'd ask you a little bit about Ansible and a little bit about Terraform to just, I don't try to trip anybody up. That's like, I don't like gotcha interviews. I've been in gotcha interviews. They're stupid, right? I like interviewing people where I'm kind of drawing out, and then I can say, okay, this is my expectation of like somebody who knows this even probably way more than me, but like you're only filling this little beaker up to like a 2, like, I don't have to trick somebody to figure that out. I can talk to them about it, right? Talk to them and see what they're kind of seeing. Wonder if there's an inventory management tool in Terraform. I don't know about that, Nimitz, but I can tell you that Terraform, anything you build and anything you destroy is in the state file. So anything you put and you build. All right, they'd like you to be, but really scripter, right? They want you to be able to script stuff, which is, I think, good. Now, I asked this person when they first posted this up in our Discord a while back on 10.4. I said, hey, can I take my answers? Because they said a bunch of things that the person asked them, and then I wrote up what I thought. Let me think. Some of this looks like they did it. Oh, some of it was for me as well. But these were the questions that they were asked. So then I said some things about it. So they asked the difference between an IP address and a MAC address, right? This is a common low-level networking problem, but this was for an infrastructure engineer, not just a Linux engineer, not just a platform or a network or a software engineer. This was infrastructure engineering. So you need to know, in my case, I explained it like this. IP is layer 3, MAC is layer 2. Hierarchical and logical, meaning data can flow in a certain direction with this. You cannot flow data with MACs alone. What we can do inside of what we would call a redundant layer 2 network is use a spanning tree protocol or a rapid spanning tree protocol to elect a root bridge by either quorum or via our own just setting it. You can actually just set it by setting a number. And what would happen is all the frames will flow towards that one, right? MACs are burned in, but they can be spoofed. Very easy to spoof on a network. They're 48 bits long as opposed to 32 bits long. The first 24 bits identify a vendor always, and the last 24 bits are a unique ID to the device. However, that being said, a MAC address can also be spoofed. We generate them all the time in VMware and those kind of things. Important thing about these, they have to be locally unique. Does it say it here? They have to be locally unique. What does that mean? That would mean that, like, if there was in my house here, there's one Scott, and if another Scott showed up, I'm like, you got to be Scott too. You can't be Scott. Scott's already taken. Locally unique means within the network they're on, they have to be unique. So, not routable, and never leaves the network, and IP addresses do leave the network, so that's kind of there. Yeah, there can be only one. They asked, what is a routing table? Again, more infrastructure, more, said it's the path determination portion of the function of router. We look for the longest prefix match to send to that network because some routers can handle variable length subnet masking. So that only works if we match to the longest prefix. We always want to have a default if no match is set, because what happens if there is no default or what we call gateway of last resort in networking, then we drop on the floor. Routers don't lose a single second of sleep over a packet that they can't get somewhere. If they don't have a path to get there and they don't have a default, they just drop it on the floor and go about their day. It's like a hot potato. They're going like this with it, and they just drop it on the floor. They don't care. They asked about Linux file permissions. What does chmod 755 mean? 7 is the owner, 5 for the group. That's this 5 right here. And then 5 for everyone else. That's this 5 right here. And what does the 1 mean for directories? If you have a 1 here, then everybody can traverse that directory. That's what that means. And 755 looks like this if you care. Right? Whoops. In hex or in binary. So this is 7, 5, and then 5, right? Like that, if anybody cares. They said, where would you go to find logs? What do you see in the var log? What do you see in there? So I'd say cd_var log and then tail-f on auth log or syslog if you're on a... We were looking originally on that one on a Linux box, so tail-f var log secure. We were looking on a Ubuntu box, I mean. This box is... so this would be var log auth log, and then we can see like what's going on with our system, what kind of connections, what's going on. I might look for syslog. It should just be syslog, and I can sit here and see if any messages come in and things that are kind of going on with my system, right? Then there was a question here about like, what would you do if you found a service not working? And I would say, go check on it. So if we go here, system status firewall D, we see that it's running. We see that it's no longer running. And then we say, well, it's dead, but it was enabled before, right? So maybe I go, well, why, if it was enabled on startup, but it's dead now, what's happened to it? And I can do stuff like journal ctl -xe and then -u for firewall D, and I should be able to see just firewall D stuff. And then I say, oh, I hate that. So maybe I set it to like no pager, and then it'll just come out to the screen, right? Maybe I want to dump that into a file or something, so I drop the no pager on it, and I throw that into a temp, firewall .log or something like that, just so I can go pull it later. Maybe I want it by host name because I'm doing it on a bunch of systems, so host name dot and then firewall, and then if I cat, was this Rocky Night? I've got my Rocky 19 firewall log, and I can go cat it and see that. So maybe if I went and blasted it out to a bunch of machines, I could get what the state of their firewall was, and then that. Are there other tools that can do that? Yeah, we could probably run a little Ansible playbook to verify the status of all of our firewalls. But the point is, what would we do if we found a service not working? We would go and we investigate the service. We'd see why it stopped. Did somebody interact with it, right? Like in that case, I just stopped it, but was it set to start on the system? We know that. We know it's set enabled. So if I found this down, something's happened. It's either failed or somebody's turned it off. So then I go, well, that's shitty. My system's down. I don't know what's happening. I could do a last through more and just see, has anybody been on this box, right? Assuming I knew when that happened, assuming I know that it's happened recently or I got an alert about it, I can go and look at, you're going to get, history is not going to be great because history is not going to show you things like if Bash gets killed unceremoniously, meaning like somebody kills it on their own system or something like that, and Bash can't clean up, it won't write out the history anyways. So Bash isn't a completely reliable thing for sysadmins and engineers to use to see what's kind of going on. But what I might do is systemctl cat firewall D, and I would say, okay, this is how it was started, and this is maybe what information it was started with. Here's any firewall args that were given on the command line. I might be able to go find those down here in this config file. And then I go, well, I've never looked at this config file, but there's no special firewall args here. But if I had special variables or something that had been there, I would see them here. So anyways, my point is I've never even looked at that on a system, but I can go and start digging in and find out what's going on in the system. Does that make sense? So things I would check if I found an issue with the service not working. What does it look like when we try to start it? What state did we? I'd probably check what state we found it in when I first got there. Was it turned? Did I think it was turned off? Did something happen where it was written to a log? Did the log stop at some point? Maybe I do a df-h and I find out very quickly, oh shoot, we're out of space. That was it, and then that's when we start having all these problems. Are we out of memory? Were we out of memory when that happened and there was an out of memory killer? So then we start grepping for firewall from varlog ss messages, right? And we just see like, oh, something happened to it. It was stopped. It was stopped at exactly this time. Was that me or was that some other, user? Was that expected? Is that in any of our tickets anywhere? Like, did somebody ask for the firewall to be turned off somewhere and just nobody documented it, right? These things happen. You got a lot of people, too many cooks in the kitchen, and if people aren't documenting what they're doing on their tickets, so, against Rocky 19, I turned off the firewall. Well, don't expect anybody else to know that happened, right? They can't read your mind. You went home for the 3-day weekend, right? You weren't paying attention. It said right here, what is group policy? That one's fun, right? Because it's not even Linux, right? And then they said they flopped it, they didn't know them, and I said that's all Windows. Group policy is the way you apply things to Windows devices, right? When they boot or when people log into them, you can apply policies. What is Active Directory? I just put Windows. How would you go about documenting an issue that hasn't been seen before? I said make sure you're taking notes as you're investigating. Write out what isn't working as you investigate. That's one thing I always do. Anything I find that's anomalous, I write it down. And I say, what tool do you want to use? I'd learn Markdown. I'd figure out how to use Markdown if you're not very good at it. James, that is true in most modern operating systems. If you put a space in front of a command, it typically will not be added. Now, that is not universal, though, but that is on, I'd say, probably like 90% of the modern Linux systems I work on. Some will still accept the space and still go into history, but depends. This next one was steps you would take if a user came to you and said that they had a problem. Now, what I did was I posted like the troubleshooting methodology. But if you're going to be in a heavily like help desk or service desk type role, the right answer might be respond to the user and take ownership. Say, hey, I will drive this through until it's completed. I will solve this problem for you and get back to you in the next 2 hours or by EOD, end of day, or expect an answer from me by sometime tomorrow, but I just am verbally acknowledging to you that we're taking this on, right? And that goes a long way in whether or not people complain about service level agreements. Now, if they're paying you, obviously there may be some problems, but I'm saying like internal, if you're dealing with like other engineering teams, just taking ownership of a problem and saying, hey, we're going to figure this out, that's a good one, right? That's a good thing to do. But then this is our general troubleshooting steps. A bunch of different ways to do troubleshooting, but this is the generic, military one that I learned. There was a subnetting question about /28. How many hosts are usable? There's 14 usable in a modern, normal subnet. Now, if they're talking in the cloud, if they're talking in AWS or Azure, you go from 16 and you lose 5. So you go down to 11 usable. So AWS, Azure, you lose 5. So it's 11 usable. Starts to get almost untenable, right? Especially when you say, well, 3 of those are going to go to VPC endpoint. So I'm going to have an endpoint for my blob service, right? Like whatever blob service or S3 service, that's going to be an S3 endpoint. I'm going to have an endpoint for maybe my monitoring or something, or endpoint so that I can just hit directly into some API without it being exposed to the world. And, I don't know, you do that and now all of a sudden you're down to only like 8 usable hosts. That's not very good. Not very good when you started with 16, right? So, anyways. Let's say 2 customers came to you. So the question was, how do you prioritize? And she said, based on how much money they generate. That's not bad. Triage can be with money. It can be based on the business continuity plan or the business impact analysis. And then I said, what is actually taking downtime? And, if it's a dev environment, you might say, hey, prod is always more important than dev. And I say, well, that's true sometimes. But if a production environment is down and it's some new service that's on some page that's not even maybe mounted, maybe not even seen from the main web page, and it's something that's in like a it's not generally accepted yet, GA. It's back in like whatever, and only certain users can see it yet, and that's down. But you have a dev environment that 500 devs sit on, and those 500 devs are sitting on their hands not doing anything because you didn't fix that environment, and it's a super simple fix. I might tell you in that case the dev environment is more valuable than the prod. But there's going to have to be like some reasoning behind that if you're going to go that route, if that kind of makes sense. All right, so somebody said this was a new job. So somebody posted this one just yesterday, I think. A new job that they were going for. So here's the things that they were going to have to do, right? And let's look at this, but we're at an hour, so I'm going to take a quick break. Let's pull up Ranger Cam real quick. How's Ranger doing? Has Ranger moved? Ranger is moving. He's running his sleep. All right. Here's what I'm going to do for you guys. And just for you guys. I'm going to turn off my camera. I'm going to turn on my hourglass. And I'm going to say, quick break. Skills that we need, right? So 8 minutes. I'm going to stretch my legs a little bit, walk around. Yeah, Robodom, he's okay with his new bed. He's okay with it. It's not great, but it's on the other bed, so it's pretty good. I'll tell you, he sleeps on it. Like when he goes to sleep for the night, he sleeps on it. During the day, he tends to just kind of be wherever and all over the place. But at night, I think he lays on it, so he does like it. All right, you guys keep an eye on Ranger. Keep an eye on the system for me. I'll be back. I'll go walk and get some water and stuff. All right. TeamSpeak. Did somebody try to log into TeamSpeak? That's funny. TeamSpeak 3, no less. That's funny, guys. That is funny. That is super, super funny. I used to run TeamSpeak back in the day. Early... Oh, man, when did I run that? That would have been like 2007, 2008. I used to run a TeamSpeak server out of my house, and back then you could have up to 8 people in the TeamSpeak, and we had a little writers group. I think it was 2007, 2008-ish. And we had a writers group. Me and some of the guys would write. Yep, just for fun. Writing for fun. Writing to stay. Yeah, TeamSpeak for gaming, for sure. Yep, without paying them, you could get up to 8 people on the server. And we would just, that's what we would do, so. Hop in there and do whatever. So this is a junior systems admin, but it looks like they're also doing some other stuff. We'll get in this one. We'll give people a little bit of time to break, and then when they come back, we'll go. Also, one of the reasons I hopped on early, like I'm already over an hour, is because I have a, well, I mean, I have a wife, so we're doing Valentine's Day, right? So since we're doing Valentine's Day, when she gets off work at 4, she's gonna grab this food that's down by her work called Japan Express. We really love Japan Express. Pretty good food, and she's gonna bring that home. So, pretty excited for that. We only eat Japan Express maybe once a month, if we even do, because it's kind of far down the road. She's about 6-7 miles from here where she works, so it's only about a mile over from her, and then basically just the drive home, you know. So it's not too bad. All right, so with chocolates and flowers. Yeah, no, we don't do any chocolates or flowers. But she did give me, I don't have it by me right here, but she did give me I had a really cool little, like, I got to scratch off for the last 14 days all the things that are great about me. I always joke around with her whenever she tells me anything good. I do the whole Jafar thing. Now, princess, tell me more about myself. So my wife knows not to compliment me, or she'll hear that. All right, we're gonna keep working on this. This was somebody was interviewing for this today. Assist, support, provide. System maintenance. Oh, you gotta know some Windows. That happens, right? Companies tend to still run a lot of Windows. I don't fault anybody. If you tell me, hey, I do Linux, but the company's not that big, so I kind of do everything, I'd say, well, that's a thing, guys. It's probably more common than not, even in some bigger companies. All right. So as soon as this is done, we'll start that, and then I'll probably have to hop off here in a little bit. But just want to hop on and tell you guys, I know Robodom's been doing a good job, but you know, we've got this Linux group. It is 35, almost 3,600 people now, and the goal of the group is to get you guys into doing this stuff professionally. If you want to get a job in the space, I think we do a pretty good job of showing you guys like what the tasks look like. You got to know Linux, right? Like, and you say, well, Scott, that's the hard thing. I need to know Linux. Well, we've got stuff for that, right? Like, we've got there's the book, there's the labs, there's all this stuff that'll just get you hands on. And I do think you need a lot of hands on. But this stuff is also the how do we apply it to a business, and how do we get somebody to hire us, which I think is also valuable, right? Because just knowing all the Linux, right? We love to do all the Linux, but you know, you do all the Linux and you still can't get the job. Well, we got to figure out how to land the job, right? So this one says assist in the installation, configuration, and maintenance of network and server equipment. So I always call this rack, stack, right? Rack and stack, or rack. So For the installation, configuration, maintenance of network and server equipment, you're going to probably want to know. You want to know your documentation tool, like how are you guys documenting where you're putting things. There's a thing called drawing your elevation, or drawing your elevation charts or drawings, right? And what that is, if you guys have never seen one of those, an elevation drawing is the actual front of the rack and all the U's. So if I say, hey guys, I can't find where is this server at? You know, I'm a guy who works almost universally remotely, and I need to get somebody to get hands on this device and power it off. And I used to work for a college that was in Indiana, and I'm living here in Phoenix, right? I say Indiana, sorry, Illinois. And I would be here in Phoenix, and I was remote for them the entire time. I was doing contract work, and I've never been to I've never been to Chicago for that matter, right? So they didn't. I would have to go and look in their drawings and say, hey, is this still accurate? This device is in 37U. 37U is a little over chest height, depending on how tall you are, right? And each U is 1 3/4 inches, so then people can go and they can look, and your racks, if they're marked well, you should know exactly where 37U is. And then they're like, oh shoot, that's a network switch, and you're like, oh, I thought it was this, server device or whatever. Now we've got a discrepancy. Maybe my drawing is wrong, maybe something's wrong. Now we got to go figure it out. Now we probably have to go down to like serial numbers. We got to do something like a DMID code and figure out, like, oh shoot, this is a virtualized machine. Most of the devices, and this is one of the nice things about high performance compute, a lot of our high performance compute workloads are done on big physical boxes. So it's really easy to say, okay, I found that it's this Dell serial number, or it's this Lenovo serial number, and then they can go find it. Like a lot of these devices have like a little thing that you can pull out at the front. Some of them even have like a little QR scan, and you can just take your phone to it and it'll pop up all the information for you. It's really nice. So I have no desire to ever go to Chicago, but I hear there's parts of it that are nice. At least the college campus is supposedly nice. My buddy Jared's been there a few times for his work. So but the point is, if you're doing installation, configuration, maintenance of stuff, rack and stack, know your documentation stuff. I have my Gerber in the other room, but I would say keep a Gerber on you, right? Hold on a second. Oh, not the right one. Hold on. I did the wrong one. I meant to do... Where did that go? Oh. Yeah. Is it this one? No. Didn't mean to do that either. Those are all questions there. No, that's not what I meant to do. Hold on. Let me go to... Alright. Different page. Huh. That's not going to let me... I was going to pull this up and go grab something for you guys. Hold on real quick. I'll be right back. So, from my time in the Army, and then also from my time working in data centers, of which I've spent many years working in data centers, I always have one of these on me. But this was in the other room, so it's kind of funny. Anybody ever seen a little Gerber like this? Now, the reason I like Gerbers like this, as opposed to the ones that you flip over, does anybody want to take a guess? I might have even told you guys this before. When I told you guys this. Why do I like this one that I can just wear on my hip like this, as opposed to one that I have to go like this with both hands to open? That's why. So, if I'm holding something, or I need to do something, I can just snap this thing out with one hand. I can also put it away with one hand. So you're wearing it like back on your hip, and you're holding something or you're doing something with a server, and I can go out, do whatever I need to do. Don't hit my mic. But then it's got all the tools in here and all these other things. And yeah, you do have to pull those out. But I'm saying if you just need the pliers portion of it, you can do that without even letting go of the other thing you're doing. So I love it. Yeah, this is a Gerber. You want a little Gerber one. This is the same one that I carry. Well, this is not the same one. The wife actually got this as a present for me recently, but I've lost 2 of them in my lifetime. These are the same type of ones that I carried in Iraq in '03 as an infantry guy, because you always need something like this. And I used to cut concertina wire with this, and it would just cut concertina wire and didn't have any problems with it. So love those little things. That's a Gerber, right? If you're working in a data center, like I would tell you, because like this may go, like you guys might think I'm silly for saying this. You do not have sharp claws or teeth. You need to carry a knife of some kind for the rodents and boxes. No, I'm just kidding. You don't really need it for the rodents, but rodents of unusual sizes, right? Those kind of things. But you need something like this to open boxes and stuff. Otherwise, you're trying to do it with like your hands and your teeth, and those boxes are like they're next level industry grade boxes, right? Like they've got stuff on them. So I'm a big fan of this. You can just wear it right on your belt. This clips right on my belt. There's a pouch for it. You want to get the ones that are belt looped, and then you just wear them on your belt. And then I just always have that, and in case I need to, do it. It's called Gerber. Yeah, I'll show you guys the tool. Gerber. So it's Gerber gear, because Gerber is also a knife. Yeah. So the Gerber tool that I have is the wife got me a pretty nice. So these are not cheap, but I'm just telling you, like if you're going to be in a data center a lot, I mean, obviously there's tool bags and stuff like that as well. But I'm just a big fan of these. Now, look at some of these, like you have to open them, and I'm not a big fan of those. I want the ones that are the pliers that just snap, because I can snap them with either hand. Now, also, you might notice I'm snapping it out this way. You don't want to snap it towards the monitor, guys. You let that thing go, and there's your monitor, So I'd rather throw it this way and hit a wall. This is the general brand, the general type. But see, even this one, yeah, this one slides in too. But the one that the wife got me wasn't that big. I didn't need one that was that big. But anyways, the point is, look at them, make sure the operation is this. Because, I'm telling you guys, super useful. If you're working in data centers a lot, and by the way, you say, well, Scott, do you still work in a data center? I actually am going back over to a NOAA project, and the NOAA stuff, I have a data center about 4 miles from my house, 3-4 miles from my house, right down the road. Like literally drive down Union Hills, which is the road by my house, and then go down there, and it's right there. So I do sometimes need, and they even have, certain data centers have requirements, like I can't unbox in our data center. It's a clean air, so you can't be cutting and having cardboard opening and shooting particles everywhere. So I actually have to do that in a different room. I have to unbox in another room and roll things in on a cart because of and that's just a standard for data centers. Some data centers have that, some don't. And it depends on the air handlers that they're using and that kind of stuff, right? And your support maintenance contracts as well. Okay, you need to support the management and monitoring of virtual servers and storage environments. So the best thing I could tell you with this would be build yourself some type of VM environment. I don't think you can get free ESXi boxes anymore. Somebody was telling me, I haven't looked into that for a while. But I think with VMware being bought by Broadcom, I don't think you can get those anymore. But you used to be able to do that. Have something like this that you can talk to and say, okay, look, I understand, the virtualization. I understand that, and you don't have to show them your environment, but I'm saying, you understand how virtualization works. There's shared resources. Those resources are finite. They're always finite. They tend to be time division multiplexed across the processor and across the memory. So you can go look that up and you can go figure that out. In fact, in this version of this one that's not even free, they don't use time. We don't have time division multiplexing. We have reserved memory. And you say, how do you know that? Well, right here. I can't add more. I can't over provision memory on this box. I can't do it. It won't work. I can over provision CPUs, right? and I can see that over here in performance, how the CPUs are doing, but I can't over provision memory. So there's like these things to think about. And then understand that, right? Like understand that when you're talking to it. But they want you to support management and monitoring of virtual servers and storage environments. So if it's a virtual server, gone are the days of me going and pushing a crash cart up to a system. And let me show you guys. There's a talk that I've given you guys here. Hold on. In our ProLUG presentations, there's a talk called, I've only given this one a few times. It's called remote access, right? And what are we doing with remote access? All right, let me get this other stuff out of the way. Hold on. Out of the way, that out of the way. Just go over this real quick for you guys. I just want to show you guys this. This is an important thing to know if you're dealing with virtual environments as opposed to regular whatever, right? This is by me. And, you know, there's always the moving. We're moving further and further away from physically touching the system. Even if I'm working in the data center, sometimes there's not a device to touch because it's, you know, it's a virtualized device inside of there. So how do I get to it, right? Well, the way that we used to do console access was like this, and then this would have multiple KVM ports to each of the devices, and we would do something like this, right? And then we had a little crash cart. Crash cart would come out, and we would physically connect. This isn't even a real crash cart because he's got a laptop on top of it, but it would be a monitor on there, right? Got a monitor like zip tied to the top of it, and we would plug the monitor in and the old PS1 or now USB connections into it, and we would get access to a server, right? So we could have console access. Virtual machines don't have consoles. They don't. They don't have, I mean, they don't have a physical, there's no place to plug into. So like if I want to go into this AWX server right here, I can go to this console inside the machine via the software. Well, the reason that's important to know is they might ask you a question. You know, look, here's somebody asking questions and doing whatever. They might ask you, what do you do if you can't get to a virtual machine? Well, if I physically can't get to a virtual machine, well, okay, that's fine. But now I'm going to have to go get to the console. The console access is through ESXi or VMware or Proxmox or whatever my tooling is to go and access it. Does that kind of make sense? We're not going and physically pushing up to a machine. It doesn't exist anymore. Is that because particles could get in the circuit? Yeah, that's part of it, Robodom. And also the air handlers would suck it up eventually. And then it can affect humidity over time. It can build up static charge the more dust you have in there. And when you, so all data centers are kept at typically a certain temperature range and then a certain humidity range. The temperature range is to keep the server equipment from frying. The humidity range is to keep it from getting too humid and causing parts to rust, or too dry, causing static charge to be more likely to propagate, right? Like the more dry it is, the more static charge will build up on your skin. And I'm telling you guys, if you've ever blown, I've never personally blown a CPU, but I've watched it. I've seen people do it. You don't even feel the amount of charge that goes out to blow a CPU. So like if you ever see me working on stuff, I've either got my strap on. It's a wrist strap, guys. It's a wrist strap. It won't say strap on. It's a wrist strap. Microsoft, you've thwarted me for the last time. All right, anyway, so it's like a wrist strap, and then it connects. And what it does is it gives you it grounds you, so it gives you and the equipment the exact same. It's ridiculous. Gives you the exact same static charge, so there will be no flow between you and whatever you're touching. That's all it does. You also tend to ground a circuit board too, like a motherboard tends to be grounded to the case. So then when you're touching the case, you've got the same, you're all at the same level, basically. It's like the pool's not going to flow anywhere and blow across the top of this as far as that goes, right? Well, so I'm always, I just rest my wrist on it at all times, and then I use my other hand. Or I rest on it with both if I need both hands. I rest both of my forearms on it. And that's always worked out for me. But I do tend to stand on the static mats and then also do that. And then sometimes we also wear the lab coats too. Lab coats will also keep you, the anti-static lab coats. Look like you're like a bunch of doctors walking around. Those will keep you from discharging static as well. So that's kind of fine. Anyways, yeah, they want you to be able to support, manage, and monitoring virtual server and storage environments. If we didn't have it, I would recommend pulling this out to Grafana. right? Like have your Grafana pulling that info out. Don't try to go look at it, because I can look at this as an admin. I can go look at this, right? Anytime I want. I could be like, okay, I'm an admin. Here's my performance of this box. Here's my performance of this box. And that's maybe tenable. Like okay, I can stomach that like once a day or something, like in the morning, make sure my servers are good. But if I wanted to give management like the last 30 days, this tool would be terrible for that. Like this wouldn't be tenable. I'd be like, oh, give management all this, and they'd be like, that looks like shit. And then I would tell you, well, and also I can only go back. It looks like a couple days, maybe I can go back. Let's see how far we can go back here. So here's the 14th. Back to then. Maybe we can go to early January. Okay, we can see. It's taking a little while to. Oh, hold on. Here's maybe some servers were booted or not, turned off or whatever, and I can see how much memory I had. This was when something went down, and then was my CPU ever spiked? Not really. During this, over the aggregate, pretty even. So if they were doing capacity, so what management would care about would be capacity planning. Management and the engineers, they're going to look at this and go, yeah, we can probably, so this device, let's say, if he's not up for a hardware refresh, like hardware refresh is typically every 3 or 5 years, depending on your warranties. Maybe he's at 3 years, maybe even going on 4, and we were like, he's getting a little old, but he's still maintaining his workloads pretty light. I wouldn't think about refreshing this one early and going to a newer device or that kind of stuff. I would be like, we can save that money and put that money somewhere else, right? This is something, and then you have all kinds of different things that you might do, and you might look at this and then look at 7 other machines and determine that this one is under higher load than the other, so this one gets it and the other 6 don't or whatever. I mean, this is a lot of this stuff is more about knowing your tools than knowing all the scenarios you're going to be in, because you have no idea what's going to come out of that gate in the morning as an engineer. Like it can be anything. So I always use that example from the first Gladiator movie. It's weird that I have to say that now. There was never a second Gladiator movie, but now there is. Now I have to say the first Gladiator movie because I haven't seen the second one. Let's say the only Gladiator movie for me. He says, I don't know what's going to come out of those gates, but we're going to have a better time if we stick together. And then if you remember, they win the Battle of Carthage, which they weren't supposed to. But it was that or die, so I'd rather do that. All right, it says provide support for workstation installations, configuration, maintenance. A lot of this stuff is support peripherals. I don't know, something like that, right? Support peripherals, so like drivers, devices, right? Approved devices, don't just plug anything in. Sometimes printers, or getting people set up with printers. I did that work when I first got out of the Army. This is like, if you have to go set up workstations as part of your early job to get over into doing full-time Linux, I'd still say it's worth it. And as long as you're not taking some major pay cut to go over there or something, I would tell you, get into the field, right? I've been telling the guys this for a while, like, get in there and work on stuff. This one's fun. Help implement and maintain cybersecurity systems and protocols. So, best practices, what are our governance standards? What do we fall into? State. So it's local, state, federal. In the U.S., it's obviously different somewhere else. It's industry, or local, state, federal, industry, and what's the other one? For like governance, right? I swear there's another one. Can't remember right off, so I'll just leave it. But the point is, like, what are our best practices? Do we use a framework, right? And then there's always the CIS benchmarks. Those are huge. There's always STIGs. STIGs are huge. STIGs are pretty easy to implement. You've got, Look at these web pages. There's one. I think it got. Yeah, it got rebooted out of my system, but it was called. What was it called? Lockdown. Yeah, it was this Ansible lockdown, right? And this is. Look, Ansible lockdown. They've got remediation of your CIS and your DSys stigs. So we can go to the, let's say we're doing stigs, right? And we go down here, and here's how you can remediate, and here's how you can audit. Do you just want to audit? So stigs, CIS benchmark. Oh, well, the framework would be either of these, right? For these. And then I might say, what if we are going to use a framework, do we audit to see where we are and then make a plan for the future, right? Like anytime you guys have ever heard of the term a gap analysis is where we are and where we want to be. But let's just say that, management's up there and they're like, we want to be more secure, right? That's what they tell you, right? And you're an engineer and you're a guy who, you're an administrator on the system, but for all intents and purposes, you're being an engineer. You take that and you say, okay, well, what if I did this? What if I did an audit of all my systems right now as they were built? I don't blame anybody. The guy probably left or retired or whatever. I mean, Linux engineers, they come and go, right? So I got the system. I'm the one with the mantle. I'm the one in the wheel driving, whatever you want to think of as your example of being the admin and the engineer on the system now. All I need to do without assigning blame is figure out where we are. And I run all my scans, and it's like our little Ubuntu boxes, and we find out that they're at 13%. And I go, well, 13%, let's report that up, right? 13%. Wonderful. And then we say we want to get to 50%, let's just say, on all new builds, right? So we want to get to 50% on all new builds, and then, we might even say higher, but that's fine, And we're not, guys, a lot of times you're going to find if you go start mucking around and changing things you're probably going to break stuff. What a lot of us do is we let those things wither and go away as we replace them with the pipelines that we build, right? So you guys hear us talk about like CI/CD pipelines and stuff. Well, it might surprise you to know we also do that in the systems world, right? We build a template of a system and then we deploy it over and over again. Most recently, you guys have watched me do that with like Werewolf and stuff. That's how I've been doing it in the home lab. And when I wanted to tool you guys over to have a whole bunch of troubleshooting labs, that's what I used, right? And then I built these little troubleshooting templates and stuff. So, but the point is, on all new builds, and then we want to get 50% on all new builds by the end of the year. And then we want to, and these could be goals that we write up, and then they tweak them for us, because again, we're not the policymakers. We're just talking about maybe what we think we can do. We want to 80% on all new builds by 2020. Well, we're in 2025, so 2027, right? And 80% is pretty respectable. There's actually a color associated with that. I think it's is that where you get blue at 80, and then I think you get green at 90. I've never seen a system get 100. You could probably get up to 100, but you're gonna you're gonna have an unusable system for most people. But maybe that's your standard, right? What are actual things we have to adhere to, right? Are we touching? Are we publicly traded? SOX. Sarbanes-Oxley, right? We gotta adhere to that. Let's see. It's the main one I deal. Oh, do we deal with health data? That's HIPAA, which is the health insurance Portability Protection Act. Yeah. A lot of people think it's health information. It's not. It's Health Insurance Portability Protection Act, right? And it was designed to help insurers be able to pass the data around in a protected way, right? And then you'll get into terms here of PII and PHI, which is personally identifiable information and personal health information. Now, industry standards that, like, there's nobody that's going to come kick in your door and make you do these, but like PCI DSS, if you want to take credit cards, you're going to do that. There's 12 basic principles to this. You can go look them up if you want. They just released PCI DSS 4, I want to say like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and then I haven't kept up on it much because I've been over on government stuff, so I don't do PCI stuff anymore. But look at all this stuff. Look at all these things you can go check on, work on. I would advise people playing with this if it's interesting to you, because they've got cool stuff going on in here. I'll just give you guys the main page here, right off their GitHub. All right, boom, boom. There you go. All right. So they want you to have some cloud experience. All right. So vSphere, VMware. So they want you to know how to look at that. Again, I would advise taking that stuff out and putting that into your Prometheus as much as you can, and then getting that over, because there's tools that'll scrape that, and then get that over into your Prometheus time series database, over into your Grafana. Then you can watch stuff. Windows Server, same way. I wouldn't want to monitor these things directly. And AWS Cloud can also be fed down into Grafana. Grafana can take keys and actually pull your cloud stuff out if you want. Now, there's some costs associated with that, but they're pretty low costs as far as the data that's coming out. It's just raw number data, so it's pretty low on the gigs. I think AWS, last I checked, was like 8 cents a gig for data transfers out, which is not unreasonable. So, Robdom, said, which cloud service is best to focus on? I mean, I think AWS is probably the one that's still kind of king, although I do hear a lot about Azure, probably because some of my friends work with them. But I think AWS is a good one to focus on. There's a lot of use for it. I would also say this: go look, like, for somebody that wants to get in the industry still, look in that area and find what the people are hiring for, right? It's what the people want. I always tell you guys, you got two options, right? You can run your own business and you can learn this stuff well enough to do it as a contractor for people, or you can get a job in this. Those are your two options as far as making money with this, right? I guess you could just run your own stuff and then I guess sell stuff or do something like that. I don't know. But I mean, in the big scheme of things, I think your tech skills are going to be sold in one of two ways, either as contracted from you directly to somebody, or as an employee. And if it's going to be as an employee, you got to go look at what the people want. So I would tell people, like, AWS is probably the one. Since I moved back over to high performance compute, I haven't really used any of my AWS stuff, right? Like, I'll still play with it and stuff, but I don't have I have all these certs in it, but I don't have a lot of professional time or experience in it, So perform routine maintenance. Yeah, so for this, I would tell you, same thing as always. Look to your monitors, build them, right? Always focus on service level. So it's service level indicators, service level and SLAs. So service level indicators. How do we know something is or isn't working right? Indicators. And then we want service level these are keep thinking outputs. What the heck are these? Somebody help me out. I know one of you guys knows it. And then service level agreements, right? Those are service level I know this. There we go. Objectives. Those are things that you want to think of. And then you also need to think about, keep in mind KPIs, right? Key performance indicators, right? What do we get judged on in our system stuff? All right. I'm a big fan, if I'm backing stuff up, let an automated process do it, check, monitor the process, right? Processes that will do this for you. Oh, there's a lot of them. Bacula. I told you guys I'm like one of there's probably like 50 people certified in Bacula on planet Earth, and I'm one of them. Just because I got sent to this training class a while back, and I did it, and then at the end of the class they're like, hey, does anybody want to take the cert test? And I was like, I'll take it. And they go, here's the requirements. They just gave me a bunch of requirements, and they said, send it to us whenever you get done this weekend. That was the test. And it had to be a working, functional system that they could go and just run in theirs. And you had to adhere to all these things. And I was the only guy out of like 10 dudes in this class that did it. And they told me later, they're like, yeah, nobody really ever does it. Because it's a lot of thinking, right? Like, you've got to build this whole thing out. And I'm like, but that's what I was doing for that's what I was doing for the project I was on with the government. So I was like, well, I mean, if the government already paid for it, I can just get the cert. So I got this cool little cert from them that I doubt anybody has, but probably just because nobody cared to take the test at the end. So yeah, it's kind of fun. I got it back here behind me somewhere. I can go grab it. It's not like one of the ones like up on the wall right over here that you guys can kind of see, but they're not facing us. Those are all my degrees. The wife put all my degrees up. And then over there where you guys also can't see is all my jiu-jitsu stuff. So that's the wife put up. I'm gonna be moving my office soon too, by the way. I don't know if I told you guys. I'm gonna move my office to this other room over here that's cooler in my house, and I'm gonna be taking that room over, and then I will. I'll probably just keep my green screen up behind me all the time, and then I'll be doing my green screen again, so it'll be good. Yeah, well, it's Robodown. It's in my house. I'm just moving to a different room, so I will still. This room will become the workout room, so. Me and the wife will move all our workout equipment in here. Look, Ranger's on his other bed. Super comfy. Super comfy dog. Yeah, well, I mean, I do green screen sometimes too, so I got a little green screen sitting over here. It's annoying to pull it in and out of frame. I don't always do it. Like, sometimes, like, you guys don't even see me do it because I don't even bother with it. But, all right. I'm a big fan of that. I have stuff, I've shown you guys, Ansible is great for backups. I have a little backup script I wrote a while back. I showed you guys this. I wrote it, and I posted it in our Ansible code. And then I took it into a customer, and they really liked it. So I use it. That's somebody else's. If you guys don't know, our Discord has a whole bunch of crap in it. Whole bunch of good stuff too, by the way. People doing stuff that's useful. See how people did troubleshooting. I'm not that far back, so I'm not even gonna look for it. I just know it's right just before that stuff. That was patching. I need to still build that one, the patching one. All right. Yeah, this was the router one, right? So just go back up all your network devices out of I do this out of its own folder, so then it's just got a local inventory, and then it's just network devices out of that local inventory, and it just goes and grabs them and then just outputs them to a little backup place, and it just always stores the most recent one every time. That's a wrap, so that comes over to here, and then the inventory name, so it just writes them all out every time. And this actually saved me because somebody deleted our configs. We did a reboot of the systems, and they hadn't been saved back to the startup config, the running config of these gateway devices, and there had been some changes made for security reasons. And this actually saved me because it was running, and I had the backup of the system. So super easy to do, super easy to set up. All right. Okay, so Ansible is great for backups, fire, and forget. Right, just let it run stuff, and don't forget. Always go and check and monitor. You know that the things are good, but you can do that. Windows, they want you to know some Windows. I can't help with that. I actually can help with that, but I'm not going to. The window, this part. I'm just going to write Windows. User accounts, make sure you're building them according to a template. Don't just go off and do whatever you want. They want you to maintain documentation. So, how are you doing it? Is it, I mean, look, it sucks, but is it SharePoint? Is it media? I love MediaWiki. I think it's a great tool for internal stuff. I've seen Mattermost do it, even though that's not really what Mattermost does. It's more of like an internal little talking tool. But the thing is, you could set these things up, and it works. Ends up being fine. Assist in management of IT asset management systems. So, yeah, assets. Good CMDBs, ServiceNow. I don't know any open source CMDBs, but I'm sure there are some where you can keep track of all your assets, right? Some of you guys remember the other day I turned on a server that I didn't even realize I had in this rack back here. And I was like, oh, that's something that's been off for like a year. I forgot that I had all that stuff. They want troubleshooting. How do we troubleshoot, right? There's a procedure. I would tell you learn 1 or 2 troubleshooting procedures and be good at them. Don't try to learn, 100 different ones for each individual situation, because then you're just going to have a bunch of them that you never use. Instead, use one that you can apply to many. If you guys want, I'll write them out, but we have them. I think, hold on, if I say troubleshoot. Next. I say learn a troubleshooting process, learn how to troubleshoot Kepner Trago. I think I put it in here somewhere. Troubleshoot hardware, software. There was a same type of thing. Look at this. All up and down this doc, they want people to know how to do troubleshooting. All these different job postings, every single one of them wanted you to understand troubleshooting. Here's our troubleshooting. Identify a problem and symptoms, establish a theory of probable cause, test your theory, establish a plan, implement, verify functionality, make sure it's at least what you expected, and then document findings or outcomes, right? Let's go to the bottom. If we wanted to write it again, we just put it like this. Boom. How do we troubleshoot? Make everything work, right? It doesn't have to be like, it doesn't have to be this as a hard, fast, like you're running from point to point down a trail. You can meander, you can do what's required to get the system back running, but this just gives you, like if you get lost in a fog of troubleshooting or fixing something, this gives you something to kind of like step back and put your hand on, like a guidepost, and go, okay, what the hell? I identified the problem, I established my theory, and then I got lost testing it. Okay, I need to come back. That test, I don't have a good way to test it, so I'm either going to need to establish a new theory, or I need to figure out a better test. But like it keeps you from meandering because you know where you're at in the process. Does that make sense? It's almost like you just have a place to rest and think about like what you're doing when, I mean, all I can speak for is how I think, but like my mind will be racing trying to fix the problem, and I will be trying to test as many things as I can to narrow it down to be able to move through this. But it gives you, it gives you a place to kind of take a breather, right? Like it's like a walking stick. You can rest on it for a second and go, okay, where are we at? What are we doing? What have we done? Right? So I like troubleshooting. And then this is, user support. User support's always the same, right? Like, let the users know you're working on their stuff, document what you're doing, make sure you get back to them within the agreed upon time frame and that kind of stuff. So this is the job, right? All these different ones are the job. We start up here with actual job requirements, right? Like install and configure these servers, monitor these things, implement and maintain security standards, and all the answers kind of end up looking the same, right? They end up looking the same. Yeah, Chris, that's what we're doing here, right? This is what we're trying to do, is get you guys into doing this. Now, there's another side to this, guys, right? Like there's another side to this where obviously you have to just do Linux. For lack of a better way of putting it, is like you have to there's an old song, Johnny Be Good, and he could play a guitar like he was ringing a bell. Do you guys know why they say it like that? Does anybody here know how easy it is to ring a bell? You just whack the little bell and it goes ding, 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 ding. Or you just go like this and it's ding, ding, ding. It's easy. Easy to ring a bell. You have to do Linux like you ring a bell. And I know that sounds silly, but it's like you have to, if you're not spending at least 15 minutes at the command line, right? Like you're going to have a hard time getting into the field if you're not in the field. If you're in the field, you're spending 8 hours. Or as my boss likes to say, we'll be like, hey, we worked 12 hours today. And he's like, sounds like a good half day. You worked a whole half a day. Good job. So that's kind of, that's a joke between us and our boss. But yeah, like looking through this stuff, how do I maintain security posture? How do I know that my servers haven't drifted? These are things that we do on the system, maybe, right? As a professional bell ringer, yeah. You guys ever see the one where the guy goes to ring the bell and he throws it, or I forget, and it knocks the cymbal girl out? So there's a person, or is it the guy I think he might be drumming, and the thing flies out of his hand and knocks the other girl out. It's kind of funny. It's terrible, but it's also funny. That thing's been on the internet as long, like 20 plus years probably. That's an old internet one. That's been around. So now, how hard you hit a bell, it always rings at the same frequency. Fair. Manage user accounts. So these were things that I talked about. We don't want to be in the business. You can say this in an interview, I think. We don't want to be in the business of managing active, of user accounts. On the Linux engineering, we want to keep the systems up and working, and we want to trust the, Active Directory or infrastructure of the company to do user stuff. And then that's what these things are, right? Like, how do we set that up and keep that working? Perform routine system backups. So these are real ones that we had looked at before and we wrote up. 3 copies of the data, 1 prod, 2 backup, 2 different types of media, and 1 off-site. So there's an old 3, 2, 1. You can go look it up, but it's 3 copies of the data, 1 in prod, 2 in backup, 2 different types of media, so disk and tape, SSD and spinning disk, 2 different types of media that it's sitting on. It can be more if you want. And then one of those media is not actively being touched by anything. So what that means is if all this stuff gets compromised, the one that's offsite is still protected. Yeah, Chris, this has not gone up to Discord yet because, hold on. I think there was a SpaceX one that somebody had done, and we never got to doing that one, but I thought it had some good skills and technologies mentioned. And I think there's one other one that I didn't finish. But I'll throw them all up. I'll throw them up there. Hold on. I'll put it in the meeting notes. Where's meeting notes? Meeting notes. And then... Oh, it looks like Enzo got it for me. That's probably it. Hold on. This is sysadmin example jobs, right? And this is going to be... I think this is going to be too big. It's going to make me attach it. Yeah. There we go. That's fine. And example job tasks, right? Boom. So then that'll be in there. You guys can download. Yeah, you get all my errors and all my other stuff like that. Hold on. Yeah, this is the one we were talking about the other day. Yeah, this is exactly it, Enzo, if you're still around. That's good. This was one, it just goes back a little bit, but I said when you're the new sysadmin, you document these things and make an onboarding doc. If they don't have a good onboarding doc where you go, even if they do have a good one, update it. And I'm telling you right now, in the first couple weeks, people are gonna be like, this person's a rock star. They updated that and like everything's good. So these are the things that I think you should do. You should document sources, our team and others. Like, is there a wiki point? Is there a SharePoint? Like, where are our documentation? Where's that going? Right? That kind of stuff. What meetings do I have to hit? What meetings did it take them a while to get me into? Because sometimes, people be sitting around and be like, oh, shoot, I didn't invite the new guy, but then the meeting's half over. And by that doesn't help you any. But if I take care of that so that the next guy that comes after me knows, like, hey, I need all these meetings, or you even send it to the manager and say, hey, this is the onboarding form, make sure you give them their meetings, that won't ever be a problem again. And then that makes it, like, that much more smooth. That happened to you, Robodom? Like, you were just sitting around for a week and nobody had you in any meetings or whatever? And then these are things I would check access to the servers. Am I root? Do I not have root for the first few weeks? Whatever. My Jira board, if we're doing Jira, right? What are our tools we're using? Do we have a team calendar? Can I put down? I actually went on a team a couple years back, and I got hired in June, but I had let them know I needed 10 days off in July. I said, hey, I hope this isn't a deal breaker, but I need all this time off right at the beginning. They're like, that's fine. So then, immediately, like, it was my first day. I made sure that went on the calendar. And I said, hey, guys, just want to let you know we talked about this in the interview process, this and this and this. And that actually happened with that college I was telling you guys about. I was going to Mexico for down kind of south in Mexico for this trip with a bunch of my friends. And I think we had I've told you guys this before, we had 30 people down there it was a wrestling camp. But we were just down there hanging out and doing all this stuff. And I had to do that right as I got hired on. So I did a lot of this stuff before I left. And they were like, man, this guy's doing all this stuff. Check your access to SharePoint. Look, we don't need to like SharePoint, but we might have to use it. Uh-oh. Okay, the wife's coming home. And then it's Valentine's Day, and I got to go. All right. GitHub, Bitbucket, GitLab. Make sure you can generate keys, get keys. Make sure they tag it to however they're going to do it. Make sure they do it. Points of contact. Do I know how to get a hold of HR? Do I have an architect that I can go ask questions about? Can I get documentation to review? What service level indicators or KPIs do we have for these systems? Your manager may know that. If they don't know that, go and document them, right? What are our current pain points? You should know this from the interview. You should, when we get done with an interview and they say, hey, Scott, do you have any questions for me? I say, what are our current pain points? I always ask that. I've asked that my whole career because here's the thing. They're hiring you to backfill somebody, but that person left probably because of pain points. A lot of people don't leave jobs, they leave environments, right? Like, they like the work. But so, LTO. Good old LTO. The last LTO I've worked on was 8, but I think 9 might be GA now. I'm not sure. But what are our current pain points? And then, if you just hit those right off the bat, and you let's say you even solve a couple of them, which I think is a huge thing to do right as you come on a team. They're gonna be like, this person solves problems. This person thinks through and gets a completion on problems, and that's what we need. Like, our engineers and our admins are very good at keeping the system running, but they don't get rid of the problems. The problems stay, but they get swatted away quickly because we have decent other things. But this person came in and solved things. I really think that's the thing that'll get you jumped up, and it'll get you guys up there. First thing I do is see if a change advisory board process is, and ask if there's any fires from deployment. If not, let's talk about getting rid of. Yeah. Cab also. So I'll tell you. Well, that's a different story. That's an Army story. But anyway, so system map, and then can you draw it out in Excalidraw? How do I enter the system? What hosts or jumps do I have? What's the naming scheme? And when I did this, some of the guys asked me, they said, hey, Scott, will you show us what that kind of looks like? So I did one a couple Saturdays ago. Where's this at? I think it's still my Excalidraw right now. So I just started drawing this out, right? And said, okay, this is how we get into my home lab system, right? We come in off the internet. You can hit http prolug.com on port 3401 to get into Guacamole, or you can hit us on port 22 from the internet on that same site, and then that gets you dropped into DMZ here off the home router. P01 Jump 01 is my .245 box, and then from here you can jump into the lab. So here's the lab admin stuff, all the admin courses back here. And then I was going to build a new range back here for like the hammer block range, which is hammer block is an old competition we used to do at Lockheed Martin, which was basically, I basically equate it to what most of you guys call the capture the flag environments. But this is my physical hosts down here, and then where they sit in relation to these different networks. There's a primary network over here where a lot of my home stuff is. Here's the excuse me. Man, my home lab, and then my primary home network, and then the lab network. The reason I have a separate network over here off of my primary network is because my home router wants to do DHCP. If you guys come over and you're like, hey, Scott, let me get the Wi-Fi password, you'd get dropped in here in my home network, 192.168.11.0. You'd get dropped in here. But that you can only have, so DHCP is like the one ring. What's the one ring? One ring to rule them all, and in the darkness bind them, right? That one ring, there can only be one ring, right? One of the one rings, right? If we're talking the ring from the Fires of Mordor, right? Where I'm going with that is, in this network, there can only be one DHCP. Do you guys know what happens if you put two DHCPs in the same network? They might want to take a gander or give me a guess at what happens if you put two DHCP in the same network. It's very similar to the movie Ghostbusters, right? What happens when you cross the streams? Can unmake, yeah, it breaks a lot of stuff, because what is it doing? I mean, it would be like if I came home from work, you know, I work from home, so that's not really good, but let's say I came home and somebody else was moving into my house, and I'm like, that's my house, it's at this street address on my street in my hometown, and they're like, oh, I don't know, man, the guy over there's assigning houses, and we got assigned to this one, and I'd be like, all right, we got a problem, right? Anyways, you got two problems. You got to get the person off of your house, and then you also have to go get the person that's giving the addresses, which is one of the reasons DHCP is so nefarious. And actually, you can go look up attacks with DHCP that can really frustrate people in networks, right? But the point is, my other DHCP over here is required for Werewolf to work. Werewolf has to control DHCP over here. And you say, well, can't Werewolf just let this control it? It doesn't work like that, because if Werewolf's not controlling DHCP, he's not assigning these boxes as they come up to who they are. So that's why we had to split the network. And then you say, well, Scott, why were you going to split the network again to this security network? Well, because we were gonna do another Werewolf. This is the plan, right? We put this over here as planned stuff, right? This was the plan, was to put another Werewolf over here, and then have new Rocky boxes. They'll have a different name. They'll be probably, I don't know, Hammer, like Captain Hammer. Anybody know who Captain Hammer is? Who is Captain Hammer? Somebody tell me. Oh shit! All right, Hammer 1, Hammer 19. Show her the Hammer cycle. Not A-Team. No, that's a good guess, though. Yeah, multiple machines on one address. Basically, everything breaks. Yeah, Chris, I think you're right. Yeah. The, and then Past Life, Pleiades. I think that's right, Pleiades. Cool stream. Thank you. Enjoying content. Join the Discord. You guys are always welcome on the Discord. Discord is where, I think the Discord is where more cool stuff happens. Me hanging out here is just to tell you guys about it, really. And then I have a skill where I've gathered greater engineers than myself, and then they'll help you out with stuff as well. So I think it's pretty good, pretty inviting community. Look, they drew all this stuff for me. They drew all this stuff for me when I was trying to work the other day. I didn't draw these on here. Anyway, so this is planned. Let me grab this. And I'll build it out one of these days. A few weeks back, I started to build it out, and then I tried to move one of the nodes. I tried to take C router and make C router 2 out of it, but I couldn't move the ISO, so I was like, or I couldn't move the VM. It's not VMDK. It's VMDK is the standard for the disks for ESXi. It's something else on these ones. But anyways, the point is I couldn't move it because they were saying that my XCPNG boxes were different, and I'm like, ugh. So I just didn't bother doing it. But I'll build this out. This is planned. I'll let you guys know because we're doing, for people that don't know, we're starting a Linux Systems Administration course. We're going to do round 2 starting on March 22nd. So people that have been through it already, we ran it last year. It's completely free. It's 16 weeks of Linux Systems Administration. It's, I think it's challenging if you're not in the space, but it gives you a lot of the skills I think that you need to have to pass the interview and get in there and do this stuff, right? Like that's where I want you guys do some web development. Well, I'll tell you, past life, you definitely are in a good spot if you want to get into doing this professionally, because our stated goal is to take people that are doing this as like a hobbyist or for fun and help you get into doing it professionally. That's the goal. That's what I have been doing. I've been running this group for almost 11 years, and then we've been on Discord for almost 6 years now. So long time, right? And for the longest time, we just, we had like under 1,000 people on there for a long time. We were always just kind of slowly getting up to 1,000, and then last year we kind of got a lot more people on YouTube, a lot more people hanging out with us, and tried to keep it like a welcoming environment where you can come and hang out and kind of be yourself and all that stuff. So we have meetings. So, yeah, and then the writers' room are people that they're actually building the Linux admin course. They're taking all my crap that I just threw up in the Discord, which, by the way, the crap's all still there. All of my assignments and everything, they're all up in ProLUG projects. So you can go and you could run through the course now. But they're turning it into a really nice GitHub project, and then you'll get the book, and then it's all there. It's going to be just something you can download and work through, right? And I think that's really cool of them to work on that. So, again, you guys are in there. You can talk to the bot. The bot will talk to you if nobody else will. Yeah, I thought the course was really, really good. I think a lot of people got a lot out of it. But you got to, also they would tell you got to put something into it. You can't, it's free. You don't have to, I'm not telling you to put money in. I'm saying you're going to put your time in, and then you're going to hopefully pay some returns in like understanding of systems and how people do things, and right, because I can't, that's the one thing about engineering is like I can't tell you all the things you're going to do. It's like that old saying, like, oh, the places you'll go. I don't know where you're going to go in the world. I tell people all the time, you're a Linux engineer, but you might be working at Pixar doing their back-end storage. You're a Linux engineer, but you might be, I did downstream for satellite for years at Lockheed Martin. So satellites would bring stuff down, and I was part of the process of like the big storage systems that would catch it. Well, the networks and the storage systems. And then the systems that did all the processing, we had guys that were writing all the signal and process engineering stuff, but they were on servers that I supported, right? And that's like a big part of like my early career was doing that. And you never know what you're going to do. So I tell people all the time, like I've worked with really, really smart engineers. For me, the reason that I kind of get to stand with them is I build a lot of stuff. I'm pretty good at getting this stuff built. I'm pretty good at like mapping it out and getting it going. I'm at least average at that. So, and my stuff works most of the time. Look, and then people were adding different stuff in here too for stuff that they were working on, right? Have you guys ever seen, so watch this real quick. I'll show you guys something fun if you hadn't seen it. I could take this and I can say save to, save it on my disk here, and save it. I could just save it as this, or I can call it, I think down here it was the, what was it? It was home logic diagram from the other day. I'm just going to save over that one. Boom. And then once I've saved that, if you guys haven't seen this, I'll show you this. I can share this page. I can share it over on YouTube, and I can share it on Twitch. Now on Twitch, you got to pull it out and go drop it in your browser. It's your risky click of the day. But you guys will immediately come in here and be able to edit this. Now I've already got a copy of it, so I don't care what you guys do to this. I can just wipe it back to that copy. But the point is, you guys can click on that. It's your risky click of the day, and you'll be on here, and you can go and you can save your own copy of it as well. By the way, it should come up in light mode, so go to theme and change it to dark mode if you want to see it like this. Right, so go right here and change it. But now, look, I'll see you guys on here. You guys, you break it. I don't care if you break the drawing. You can drag it around or do whatever. And then, yeah, you can put stuff on. Look, people were drawing and stuff when we were on there. You grab them. But this is a really good tool, man. If you guys haven't played with Excalidraw, it's one of my favorite things. RWX Rob originally showed it to me. And you can come up here and you can generate text diagrams as well. You can do up to 10 a day. And like I can just describe something that I want it to try to draw, and it will try to draw it out as like an engineering process for me. So you guys can play with that as well. All right. Anyways, but yeah, if you take that and you play with it, you can save it on your own machine. And then if you wanted to, you can open that. Like you guys saw me earlier in VS Code. You can open these in VS Code. So some of these were ones that I had originally shown you guys. Like this is one I'm always showing you guys about, like getting into systems administration right here. Sysadmin start over here. There's the PPDIO methodology, and then prepare, plan, design, implement, operate, and optimize. Comes from Cisco, but it's a great model for how we deploy things. And sysadmins tend to start over here, keeping the lights on. NOC, SOC, help desk. That's network operations, security operations center. Keeping the lights on in an organization, operating the systems. Do they optimize it? Do you actively do that? Do you make the documentation better? And then you eventually work over here into where you're doing more project work. And next thing you know, they're calling you an engineer, right? So, yeah, I think, but the reason I pulled this up was to show you that I could take this right now. I could strip this and put this over here, right? And then this would be the drawing that we would all see, and we could all work on it, right? So yeah, there you guys are. And then when I'm done, like, because I got to get off here soon because the wife's coming home, I'll just stop the session, and then you guys still have your copy, right? It's no longer my session. It's your kind of like, you know, your copy of it, and then you could file and save it still. So any of you guys that were in, I've dropped my side, but you guys should still have access. You can also, there's different ways to save it. You can do a shareable link. So I can say, you know what? That's pretty good. And then I can save this up into, this is up in meeting notes, this one. But this is, yeah, this is kind of like my little, you know, home lab diagram. And if I wanted to clean this up, I definitely could. I would also break it out to be physical stuff on one and logical stuff on another. And then this would clean up a little bit. But this is fine for just kind of showing people how the lab works, I think. So, all right, let's check on Ranger. Ranger's doing good. All right. Guys, I definitely have to get going. But hopefully this stuff is, you know, useful. All this stuff is up in the Discord now. All of these job things. These came from actual job boards, right? I just took them, stuff that people had given me or things that we had went and found. And then we just kind of worked through a lot of the topics and things that I would study and look at, right? So, self-assessment matrix, that's a thing that we sometimes talk about here, where it's like, look at yourself, figure out what you want to do, and then figure out how to get there, right? And then do a little SWOT analysis on yourself as well. All right, we're not going to get into that too much again, but yeah, I'm going to go hang out with the wife a little bit, and she should be home here in a minute. But I appreciate you guys coming. We'll raid somebody on the Twitch side of things. Let's go find somebody. Oh, Practical's on. We're going to go raid Practical. So the message will be do all the Linux. And I will see some of you guys tomorrow. We don't have an official meeting. There is an official meeting tomorrow for the other stuff, but our normal group doesn't have an official meeting. So, yeah, and I appreciate you coming by Past Life as well. And we will work on this stuff. Keep going through it. Take care.